Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you how to get rid of annoying light flickering without any extra plugins in After Effects. Let's get to it. So this is a quick technique that I've figured out in After Effects without using any plugins extra to After Effects. Sometimes you run into these situations where you shot stuff and you come back into your editing and then you realize your lights were at a different frequency to your shutter speed, or something that will mess it up, and then you get this crazy flicker. Let's just jump into it. So I've got my file here. It's in Premiere. I'm going to find the clip I want in the source monitor here. It's just these shots of some blurry lights. I'm just gonna do the whole rack focus, hopefully. And as you can see, the frequency of the shutter and the lights are sort of conflicting, and that's why it's off and flickering. Now, this is not a huge deal until you're like really working with broadcast stuff, like trying to get something broadcast on TV, or has to go through some sort of QC, quality control, and that will not pass on most quality control things. Possibly even if you had a movie with a bunch of flickering like this for iTunes, because iTunes is known to have pretty high quality control, a kind of a high, low tolerance. But if you're just putting in stuff on YouTube and stuff, of course, that's totally fine. Here's a really quick and quite simple way of fixing it. So I'm going to stick this in my timeline here, and I'm going to now right click on this and output it to After Effects. So replace with After Effects composition, bring that up. It'll ask you to save it, so I'm just going to call this flicker, and then your shot will come up. So this shot is sort of shaky, kind of handheld, and I did that on purpose to kind of show you that it can be done on movie shots as well. So let's do it. So we have our just our regular shot here. We're going to duplicate it, so we're going to Control D or Command D, I believe it is on Mac, or Edit, Duplicate right here. So now we just have two, we have a top and a bottom. One of the top layer is going to be our clean mask, basically. It does kind of ignore that at this point, and this is just our regular shot. And we're gonna duplicate it again. Again, this is the same shot. They're all the same layer name, right? And so this middle layer we're gonna call the de-flicker layer. And then we're also gonna add a new adjustment layer. Put this with, and basically we're gonna sandwich this middle part together, the adjustment layer and the de-flicker layer, and we're gonna pre-compose this. So we'll go to Layer, Pre-compose, or Control-Shift-C, and we're gonna call this again. We're just gonna call it de-flicker, but now it's a composition on its own. So we're in the original composition, and what we're gonna do here is we are going to speed up this middle layer, essentially making it, instead of 24 frames a second, which I shot this at, we are going to make it 12 frames a second. So we're going to go to time stretch, and we're going to go to 50. That will cut the frame rate in half, basically. So now if you just turn this layer on, you'll see that it goes really quick. But what you can also see is that the flicker is gone. So this most of the time will work. I have yet to find a light flicker that doesn't work with this, but if you can, again, you can see that it doesn't flicker anymore. But the problem is that it's sped up, so it's not going to work quite yet. So all we did was we took the de-flicker layer and we just sped it up to 12 frames a second. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a time warp. We're just going to type in time warp, and we're going to find this effect called time warp under the time category. We're going to stick that right on de-flicker. So all we did was just put the effect time warp on the de-flicker. And now the default of time warp should work, or at least be decent enough to check it out, because it actually defaults at 50% speed. So basically what we did was we sped it up to 12 frames a second essentially, and then that gave us a clean flicker, so basically no flicker anymore. But then we're going to have to kind of interpolate it back to the same frame rate as before, so it'll go to 24 basically. So that's basically, I say basically a lot, but that's what we've done. And if you can see here with the time warp on there, it doesn't have a flicker. But another problem that comes up is that it's only half the length of the original shot. So what we're going to have to do is double click into the deflicker composition, and all we have to do is go to composition settings, and we're just going to make it a little bit longer, just to something so we can work with it. So instead of 5 seconds, I turned it to 11 just to have enough. And we're going to make sure all this stuff's pulled over. And then once we go back into the original composition with the deflicker composition in this shot, or in this composition, is now you'll see that you'll have enough room here to pull that all the way over. So we're so close to being done already. We still have this the top part flickering. And why do I have that there? Well, I'll show you. I'm going to turn it off. And because this shot really doesn't have any people in it or anything that's really like obviously, like if I had somebody kind of coming across the frame, you would totally see this weird ghosting. It'll look really kind of weird. But because this image is basically just inanimate objects, you can totally just get away with just doing that. But what I like to do is, because you can't totally trust the interpolated frames that the time warp does, even though it does a really good job, is you take the original shot, but you can just mask out the lights that you don't want anymore. So you basically bring back everything from the original shot, the flickering shot, but you bring everything back up, showing that doesn't necessarily need to be deflickered, just to give it its highest quality and its highest, you know, not a weird ghosting effect. So what I'm going to do is just simply mask using this top clean layer. This is basically just the original shot with the flickering. If you see that, it still flickers. I'm just going to take that frame and just do a really loose mask around the lights. Sometimes this doesn't work because the interpolation and the original shot are a little bit different. Obviously, because one is making up frames while one was just literally what it was shot. So, and I'm gonna track the mask. So I'm gonna go to mask, and then right click track mask, and then I'm just gonna do it kind of will track those lights as best as it can. And what I'm doing is I'm making basically a negative mask. So I masked around the lights, but really I want the interpolated frame, which is the deflicker interpolated time warp layer. I just renamed it. I want the lights to still shine through on that with using the time warp fix, basically. But I want the original shot to show up on the edges where it's not needed to be deflickered. So that's what I did. And that is basically your shot. Now, again, like I mentioned, if this had people in the shot, that's where you kind of use this top layer to your advantage. You might have to even do a little bit of rotoscope around people's heads if they like move around. It's not foolproof, and it definitely takes time, but you definitely can get rid of that really weird, annoying flicker. I really hope you liked this tutorial. I hope this helped you out. I know it's a little bit more kind of a niche problem, a niche little. It's not something that comes up every day, but I just thought I'd just throw this tutorial out there, and hopefully it's useful for some people. Thanks a lot for checking this out. I really hope this helped you out. I know this is a weird thing. I actually had this happen on a feature project I was working on, and we had to do this technique. But it worked out, and it aired on TV. Thanks for following Francis Brothers Films. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.